Lincoln Castle was home to many notable prisoners over the years, two of which we've talked about for their memorable hangings. But one story stuck out during my research that I just had to talk about. The 8-year-old that burned down a haystack. Lincoln Jail was the home of many prisoners between the years 1848 and 1878, and children were no exception, the more memorable of whom was one John Cook, who, at just 8 years old, was arrested for arson. Young John Cook one night was bored. Fortunately for him, he'd found a box of matchsticks to play with earlier in the day. He lit a few sticks, watching the flame burn out each time. Something about the flame excited him. Perhaps it was the thought of being caught. Or perhaps the flame simply warmed his little hands on this cold night. He would light a couple more, his excitement now fading. One more, he thought to himself. Just one more. Unfortunately for him, it was one match too many, as this time the flame would get too low. It singed his finger. He threw the match out of instinct to tend to his wound. He was fine, but the situation intensified. The match he tossed had landed amongst a nearby haystack, and in what felt like an instant, it caught ablaze. The fire spread rapidly. Smoke soared into the sky, catching the attention of a farmer nearby, whose field John was in. A constable was called. John, at just 8 years old, was arrested and taken to Lincoln Castle Jail. John Cook was brought here, the men's ward at Lincoln Castle Jail. This is an example of the cell that Cook would have stayed in. It housed up to 3 prisoners, most of which would have been adults. They had beds which hung from wall to wall, and some slept on the floor with just a pillow and mat as well. With confined conditions like these, it was no shock that young John Cook would soon fall ill. John Cook's health declined rapidly, and soon it was recommended he be removed from the jail to improve his health. He was brought back home to his mother, where a doctor could tend to him more regularly. Unfortunately though, it was a little too late. The now 9-year-old Cook soon passed away. John's death, without a doubt, was tragic, but what conditions would he have to be living in to cause such a rapid decline of his health? Well, sickness outbreaks were quite common at the prison. This was due to the tight living conditions of the prisoners. 3 of them crammed into one cell sharing one toilet. And there was also the problem with the air ventilation as well, which simply did not work at all during the summer. The enormous chimneys above the prison are part of a combined heating and ventilation system, the principle being that the heat from the fires would cause such an upward draft that it would draw cold air in to provide the ventilation. In winter this was successful, however in summer, as the fires had to remain lit, it meant that the prison was incredibly hot and led to outbreaks of jail fever, which infected both prisoners and guards. John Cook's tale was certainly tragic. Just imagine how scared he would have been entering the prison for the first time, surrounded by murderers and thieves. Imagine his first night's sleep on that cold stone floor, cramped in with 2 other adult prisoners. It makes you wonder what the living conditions were like on the other side of the prison, in the women's ward. That, the subject of the next episode.